You see someone across the room. No words, no touch, but something stirs, quiet and unmistakable, and before you understand it, your brain already does. Welcome to Neuro Nap Academy, a place where emotions aren't just felt. Tonight, we're not here to define love or desire. We're here to listen to the signals beneath them. What if the pull you feel toward someone has nothing to do with logic and everything to do with symmetry? Why does a glance, a voice, or a subtle scent ignite emotions that seem too big for something so small? And what happens in your brain when attraction becomes obsession? Maybe you've asked yourself why you're drawn to certain people, why some connections feel magnetic and others leave you cold. Maybe you're just curious about how your body knows what your mind can't explain. Either way, this space is for you. If this journey brings you clarity or simply comfort, you're welcome to return anytime. Let's begin, not with rules, but with a single silent moment when desire starts to flicker and the mind begins to listen. Attraction often begins not with a conscious thought, but with a feeling, a quiet pull that seems to emerge from somewhere just beyond awareness. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a pause, a longer look, a slight shift in your heartbeat. At that moment, something subtle but significant begins to change in your brain. Imagine this: your eyes land on someone new. Before you have time to process or analyze, your visual system sends rapid signals to the brain's deeper emotional centers. Within milliseconds, your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for evaluating emotional significance, has already begun its work. It's scanning facial features, body language, and environmental cues, not logically, but intuitively. It decides, pay attention. This isn't simply about beauty, it's about salience. Your brain is constantly filtering information, and when it detects something or someone that feels meaningful, it amplifies the signal. Dopamine begins to flow, initiating a soft wave of curiosity and anticipation. Your attention sharpens. You may find yourself drawn in without knowing exactly why. This first stage is often involuntary. Some researchers compare it to a kind of neural spotlight that suddenly swings in one direction. It's as if the brain whispers, "This could matter," and once that spotlight is fixed, the rest of your cognition, memories, desires, fantasies begins to rearrange itself around the image. Attraction is not a single event, it's a process, unfolding in stages, starting with that small internal stir. It's also not purely about the person in front of you. It's about what your brain projects onto them, who they represent, what they awaken in your internal map of longing, safety, and connection. Your visual cortex is highly involved at this point. Specific areas, such as the fusiform gyrus, light up when you see faces, especially faces that align with your personal and cultural standards of appeal. But this is only the beginning. Once your brain decides that someone is worth noticing, deeper systems activate. The insula starts integrating internal sensations, fluttering heartbeat, warm palms, or the slight shift in your breathing. These aren't just body responses, they're feedback loops that tell the brain you're interested. The anterior cingulate cortex, a region linked to emotion and decision-making, may already be weighing possibilities, imagining interactions, future outcomes, or even micro-fantasies that flicker beneath the surface. Interestingly, the initial feeling of attraction often doesn't involve words. It's pre-verbal, primal, a sensation, rather than a conclusion. You don't say, "I'm attracted," you simply feel a pull. And this pull comes from a complex interplay of sensory input, memory traces, and neurochemical shifts. What makes this process so uniquely human is that it's not limited to sex or reproduction. While biology plays its role, your brain's architecture allows you to interpret signals through a vast network of experiences, associations, and meanings. A voice, a gesture, a fleeting glance. These can all become emotionally loaded depending on what they resonate with inside you. Sometimes this resonance is immediate. Other times it's delayed, surfacing only after you've spent more time with someone, shared a moment, or seen them in a different light. But the initial ignition often follows a similar neural path. Sensation leads to significance, and significance leads to attention. And attention is where attraction lives. Not just who you notice, but who your mind returns to, uninvited. That repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity, paradoxically, can intensify desire. The more often you think about someone, the more emotionally loaded they become. So much of this begins quietly. No fireworks, just a shift in awareness, a moment that feels fuller, brighter, or strangely meaningful. And beneath that feeling lies a cascade of electrical impulses, neurotransmitters, and deeply ingrained evolutionary patterns that your conscious mind might never fully grasp. But while your brain reacts this way to a face, a scent, or a touch, the real driver might be something even deeper, your interpretation of what that person means to you. Attraction often begins not with a conscious thought, but with a feeling, a quiet pull that seems to emerge from somewhere just beyond awareness. It's not always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a pause, a longer look, a slight shift in your heartbeat. At that moment, something subtle but significant begins to change in your brain. Imagine this. Your eyes land on someone new. Before you have time to process or analyze, your visual system sends rapid signals to the brain's deeper emotional centers. Within milliseconds, your amygdala, the part of your brain responsible for evaluating emotional significance, has already begun its work. It's scanning facial features, body language, and environmental cues, not logically, but intuitively. It decides, pay attention. This isn't simply about beauty, it's about salience. Your brain is constantly filtering information, and when it detects something or someone that feels meaningful, it amplifies the signal. Dopamine begins to flow, initiating a soft wave of curiosity and anticipation. Your attention sharpens. You may find yourself drawn in without knowing exactly why. This first stage is often involuntary. Some researchers compare it to a kind of neural spotlight that suddenly swings in one direction. It's as if the brain whispers, "This could matter," and once that spotlight is fixed, the rest of your cognition, memories, desires, fantasies, begins to rearrange itself around the image. Attraction is not a single event. It's a process unfolding in stages, starting with that small internal stir. It's also not purely about the person in front of you. It's about what your brain projects onto them, who they represent, what they awaken in your internal map of longing, safety, and connection. Your visual cortex is highly involved at this point. Specific areas, such as the fusiform gyrus, light up when you see faces, especially faces that align with your personal and cultural standards of appeal. But this is only the beginning. Once your brain decides that someone is worth noticing, deeper systems activate. The insula starts integrating internal sensations, fluttering heartbeat, warm palms, or the slight shift in your breathing. These aren't just body responses. They're feedback loops that tell the brain you're interested. The anterior cingulate cortex, a region linked to emotion and decision-making, may already be weighing possibilities, imagining interactions, future outcomes, or even micro-fantasies that flicker beneath the surface. Interestingly, the initial feeling of attraction often doesn't involve words. It's pre-verbal, primal, a sensation rather than a conclusion. You don't say, "I'm attracted." You simply feel a pull, and this pull comes from a complex interplay of sensory input, memory traces, and neurochemical shifts. What makes this process so uniquely human is that it's not limited to sex or reproduction. While biology plays its role, your brain's architecture allows you to interpret signals through a vast network of experiences, associations, and meanings. A voice, a gesture, a fleeting glance, these can all become emotionally loaded depending on what they resonate with inside you. Sometimes this resonance is immediate, other times it's delayed, surfacing only after you've spent more time with someone, shared a moment, or seen them in a different light. But the initial ignition often follows a similar neural path. Sensation leads to significance, and significance leads to attention. And attention is where attraction lives, not just who you notice, but who your mind returns to, uninvited. That repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity paradoxically can intensify desire. The more often you think about someone, the more emotionally loaded they become. So much of this begins quietly, no fireworks. Just a shift in awareness, a moment that feels fuller, brighter, or strangely meaningful. And beneath that feeling lies a cascade of electrical impulses, neurotransmitters, and deeply ingrained evolutionary patterns that your conscious mind might never fully grasp. But while your brain reacts this way to a face, a scent, or a touch, the real driver might be something even deeper, your interpretation of what that person means to you. Some faces seem to draw you in immediately, as if there's a quiet harmony between what you see and what your mind finds pleasing. This isn't random, it's often rooted in symmetry, a concept your brain is deeply attuned to, even if you're not aware of it. Facial symmetry refers to how closely one side of the face mirrors the other. From a biological perspective, symmetry is considered a potential indicator of developmental stability and genetic health. Evolutionary theorists suggest that symmetrical features may signal that an individual has developed without major genetic disruptions or environmental stress. And your brain, always scanning for signs of reproductive fitness, whether or not reproduction is your intention, responds to these subtle cues. The visual cortex is remarkably sensitive to symmetry. Without effort, it registers when a face is balanced, even if only slightly so. This recognition may not feel conscious, but it shows up in how long you look, how intrigued you feel, or how memorable that person becomes. Symmetry, to the brain, offers a kind of visual fluency, something easy to process, and thus more rewarding. But it's not just symmetry. There's also proportionality, how the features relate to one another, the distance between the eyes, the width of the nose, the shape of the lips in relation to the chin. Your brain has internalized thousands of faces over a lifetime, and it carries silent preferences formed by repetition, experience, and cultural context. Yet, even within this framework, attraction doesn't always lean toward mathematical precision. Sometimes it's the asymmetry that becomes unforgettable. A small misalignment can give character, suggest uniqueness, or make someone feel more approachable. Beauty, after all, is not just about flawlessness, it's about meaning. And so your brain processes symmetry not as a rule, but as one note in a broader melody. There's also skin tone, expression, gaze direction, and micro-expressions, those tiny flickers of emotion that dance across the face and vanish in less than a second. Your amygdala detects these, mapping emotional states and signaling whether someone appears open, anxious, playful, or guarded. It's here that we begin to move from biology to interpretation, because the face isn't just a surface, it's a message. Your brain reads it like a language, decoding subtle emotional expressions and inferring traits like kindness, dominance, or confidence. This isn't infallible. In fact, it's shaped heavily by your past, your expectations, and even your own emotional state in that moment. You may find yourself drawn to a face not just because it's symmetrical, but because it resembles someone meaningful to you, a friend, a past love, a memory from childhood. In these cases, your brain is responding not to the face itself, but to the echo it creates inside you. There's also evidence that people are drawn to others whose facial features resemble their own. This might seem surprising, but neurologically it makes sense. Familiarity feels safe. Your brain is more likely to trust what it recognizes, and this includes subtle aspects of facial structure that remind you of yourself or your kin. Then there's the concept of the golden ratio, a mathematical principle observed in nature, art, and design. Some researchers have explored whether this ratio plays a role in facial attractiveness, suggesting that certain facial proportions approximate this ideal. Yet, while fascinating, this idea remains one small thread in a much larger tapestry. What truly matters is how your brain weaves all these elements together. It doesn't isolate features, it synthesizes. It creates an impression based on patterns, movement, and emotional resonance. A symmetrical face might spark interest, but it's the overall gestalt, the felt sense, that determines whether attraction blooms. And this process is fluid. A face you once overlooked can become beautiful when paired with a voice, a story, or a moment of vulnerability. The brain integrates information across senses and time, meaning that attraction can deepen even if the initial visual response was muted. Still, symmetry often provides a silent foundation. It makes a face easier to process, which in turn allows emotional content to rise more clearly to the surface. It's as if symmetry clears the fog, letting your attention settle more fully on the person in front of you. But the face is only the beginning, because while your eyes give you the outline, the rest of the body fills in the story. The moment you step into someone's presence, long before a word is spoken, your body begins to pick up signals, subtle cues, encoded in posture, gestures, and movement. This is the quiet language of attraction, where what is unsaid speaks the loudest. Body language operates beneath conscious awareness. Your brain, honed through evolution and shaped by social learning, is exceptionally skilled at decoding these nonverbal messages. The position of the shoulders, the tilt of the head, the openness of the arms, each offers a glimpse into emotional states and intentions. When someone leans slightly toward you, maintains relaxed eye contact, or mirrors your gestures, your brain interprets this as safety and connection. These cues activate the social neural networks, particularly within the superior temporal sulcus and the prefrontal cortex. They tell you, wordlessly, that you're being received with attention and perhaps even interest. There's a quiet magnetism in movement. The way someone walks, gestures, or stands can evoke a visceral response. It's not just about elegance or confidence, it's about coherence. Movement that flows naturally signals neurological harmony, and your brain notices. It responds with a subtle but distinct increase in attentional focus. It leans in, metaphorically, and sometimes literally. Your mirror neuron system becomes especially active during these moments. This system allows your brain to simulate the actions of others, creating a shared emotional resonance. When someone moves in a way that feels inviting or emotionally congruent, your brain mirrors those patterns, creating a sense of kinship or alignment. And then there's proximity, how close someone stands, whether they brush past you or linger within your personal space. All these influence how your body and brain interpret the moment. The closer someone is, the more emotionally charged the interaction becomes. Even slight decreases in distance can create a ripple of awareness. This is where the autonomic nervous system becomes involved. Your heart rate may shift, your breathing may subtly change, your skin might become more sensitive. These physical reactions aren't just background noise, they're integral to how attraction takes root. Your body is reading the space, and the signals it receives shape your emotional state. Gestures play their part too. A fleeting touch to the arm, a self-soothing gesture like brushing hair aside, or the gentle crossing and uncrossing of legs. Each movement carries emotional data. Often these signals are subtle, but your brain is always watching, always interpreting, always assigning meaning. And meaning is where attraction lives. A glance followed by a small smile, a casual touch that lingers just a second too long. These moments, when aligned with the right internal state, can set off a cascade of emotional and neurochemical responses. Oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, may be released even with minimal touch if the context feels emotionally safe and intriguing. You might not notice it consciously, but your posture shifts too. When attracted, people often open their bodies, turning fully toward the person of interest. They make themselves available, unconsciously echoing the non-verbal openness they're perceiving. It's a feedback loop of signals, one body reading another, both adjusting in real time. And beneath all this movement lies intent. Even if it's not fully formed, there's often a silent motivation, an openness to connection, to recognition, to closeness. Your brain is not only decoding others, it's also broadcasting your own emotional state through micro-expressions, shifts in tone, and physiological responses that can't be easily masked. Importantly, not all body language is consciously controlled. Much of it arises from deeper emotional layers, shaped by past experiences, temperament, and attachment style. That's why two people can enter the same room and evoke entirely different reactions. Your body reads their energy before your mind forms a thought. This is part of what makes attraction feel so immediate, so instinctual, because your body is already speaking the language, already reaching out or holding back, long before your conscious mind catches up. And once that physical resonance is established, once your body feels the presence of another in a way that feels safe, intriguing, or warm, the door to deeper attraction opens. But now, it's no longer just about sight or motion, because just as your eyes and body have their ways of sensing interest, so too does your brain rely on one of its most ancient allies, your sense of smell. Without effort or awareness, you breathe in subtle traces of the world around you. In every exhale of another person, molecules drift invisibly, carrying traces of their identity, biology, and emotional state. And though you may not consciously notice it, your brain is paying attention. Smell, the most primal of your senses, plays a quiet but powerful role in attraction. Your olfactory system is directly connected to the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for emotion, memory, and instinct. Unlike sight or sound, scent bypasses the thalamus, the brain's sensory relay center, and travels straight to the amygdala and hippocampus. This is why smells can evoke such vivid memories, or create emotional impressions so quickly. When you encounter someone new, your nose does more than detect whether they're wearing perfume. It picks up on their natural scent, a signature shaped by genetics, immune system composition, hormones, and even diet. This scent carries biological data, and your brain decodes it in milliseconds. One component of this olfactory code is the major histocompatibility complex, or MHC, a set of genes that influence your immune system. Research suggests that people are often subconsciously attracted to others with a different MHC profile. This biological difference can produce a scent that the brain perceives as more attractive, potentially promoting genetic diversity in offspring. You might not think they smell genetically complementary, but your neurons might whisper something like, "This feels right." Then there's pheromones, chemical signals secreted by the body that can influence the behavior and physiology of others. Though the exact role of human pheromones remains debated, evidence suggests that some compounds may subtly affect attraction and mood. Certain molecules released through sweat, breath, or skin contact may activate receptors in the vomeronasal organ or olfactory bulb, influencing subconscious preferences. But scent is more than biology. It's also personal history. The cologne of a past lover, the faint aroma of someone who once comforted you, or even the clean smell of skin warmed by the sun, all can trigger powerful emotional responses. The brain doesn't separate these sensations from the person they're linked to. Instead, it fuses them into a single emotional memory. That's why a scent can feel like a presence. You might catch it walking down a hallway, or standing near someone at a cafe. Suddenly, without reason, you feel drawn in, transported, curious. The scent may remind you of someone long gone, or stir feelings you hadn't expected. This is not coincidence. Your olfactory memory is long-lasting and deeply emotional, and it plays a quiet role in shaping who you're attracted to and why. Smell can also be a gauge of emotional closeness. Studies suggest that people in strong emotional bonds, friends, romantic partners, even mothers and infants, are often able to recognize each other by scent alone. This recognition doesn't require logic. It happens on a deeper level, as if your nervous system remembers someone even when your conscious mind does not. And then there's the chemistry of comfort. Some people simply smell right to you, not necessarily in a fragrant or intoxicating way, but in a way that feels grounding, familiar, or safe. Their scent may not announce itself, but your body registers it as calming. These olfactory signals can help deepen emotional connection, reinforcing attraction over time. Importantly, scent also shapes social judgments. A pleasing natural scent can enhance perceived attractiveness, while an off-putting one, even if faint, can override other positive impressions. This underscores how deeply the olfactory system is tied to the evaluation of potential closeness. In early encounters, when visual and behavioral cues are still being formed, scent becomes one of the unspoken filters. It may explain why someone seems magnetic in photos but underwhelming in person, or the opposite. Sometimes the brain's attraction isn't to the image, but to the invisible chemical language their body speaks. And while scent often plays its strongest role in the earliest stages of connection, it lingers. The smell of a partner's pillow, the scent left on a sweater, they continue to signal presence, even in absence. This olfactory tether helps the brain maintain emotional continuity, turning memory into something felt rather than just remembered. So as you walk past someone and feel a sudden tug, or as you lean closer in conversation and feel inexplicably soothed, remember, your brain is listening to what your nose has silently told it. But even scent, powerful as it is only one part of the puzzle, because after your eyes have seen and your body has sensed and your nose has silently approved, it's often a sound, soft, rhythmic, familiar, that deepens the intrigue even further. A single word can change the atmosphere. A voice, even before meaning is attached to language, carries emotion, rhythm, and presence. In the subtle art of attraction, the sound of someone's voice is often underestimated. But your brain listens closely. It hears not just what is said, but how it's said, and that difference can shape desire. From a neurological perspective, your auditory cortex decodes the vibrations that reach your ears and sends that data to regions linked to memory, attention, and emotional regulation. But the analysis begins long before comprehension. Tone, pitch, cadence, and modulation all are evaluated in fractions of a second, creating an emotional impression before words register. Certain vocal traits have been found to correlate with perceived attractiveness. For instance, a slightly deeper voice in men often signals higher testosterone levels, which some studies suggest may be subconsciously linked to strength or genetic fitness. In women, a higher but breathy voice may be associated with softness, youth, or approachability. These are tendencies, not rules, and your own preferences may diverge based on personality, experience, or past emotional associations. But more than biology, it's the texture of a voice that often leaves an imprint. A warm tone can feel like a blanket. A steady rhythm can regulate your nervous system. A pause, perfectly timed, can create tension or intimacy. Your brain is exquisitely sensitive to these patterns, and it reacts emotionally before you even understand why. This is especially true in early conversations. You may find yourself drawn to someone who makes you feel calm, safe, or energized, feelings that arise not from the topic of conversation, but from the qualities of their voice. It's a form of acoustic resonance, the sensation that their sound somehow fits with your emotional frequency. Mirror neurons play a role here too. As you listen, your brain subtly simulates the tone and emotion of the speaker, creating a shared experience. If their voice is relaxed, your parasympathetic nervous system may activate, slowing your heart rate, softening your muscles, deepening your breath. This physiological shift creates a feedback loop. Their voice soothes you, and your body begins to associate them with comfort. Rhythm matters. Voices that vary in tempo, that linger slightly on vowels, or that flow with natural modulation tend to hold attention more effectively. Your brain is wired to detect musicality in speech, and voices that carry a natural rhythm often feel more compelling. They're easier to follow, easier to remember, and often easier to trust. And then there's laughter. Shared laughter creates instant connection. It synchronizes heart rates, reduces cortisol levels, and releases oxytocin, a hormone associated with bonding. A voice that makes you laugh bypasses logic and speaks directly to the body, embedding a positive emotional trace that lingers far beyond the moment. But attraction through voice is not only about softness or sensuality. It can be about assertiveness, vulnerability, or unpredictability. A slight quiver in a sentence might reveal nervousness and stir empathy. A confident tone might signal leadership or stability. Your brain reads these nuances and assigns value, not necessarily based on logic, but on how those traits fit your unconscious template of connection. Past experiences also color how you hear. A voice might remind you of someone who once loved you, or someone who hurt you. It may echo memories stored in your emotional archive, creating an intuitive pull or an unexpected resistance. And sometimes a voice simply feels like home, even if you can't explain why. Cultural factors shape this as well. What is perceived as attractive in one region or community may differ in another, but beneath these surface preferences lies a universal truth. A voice carries more than sound. It carries state. It tells you who someone is, how they feel, and whether your nervous system feels safe around them. When two voices find rhythm together, when sentences overlap, tones soften, laughter emerges, that's when resonance begins. It's not always instant, but when it happens, it creates a sense of attunement, like two frequencies humming in harmony, and that harmony can form the foundation of emotional intimacy. So as your brain listens, scanning for softness, confidence, sincerity, or spark, it's doing far more than processing speech. It's asking, do I feel seen, heard, aligned? And when the answer is yes, that voice becomes a doorway. But sound alone is not enough, because at some point, words fall away, and what's left is the quiet space between two people, the proximity, the closeness, that moment when silence speaks louder than speech, and when even the slightest touch can change everything. Attraction often deepens in silence, in the space where words recede and where bodies begin to speak through distance or the lack of it. Proximity is a powerful communicator, and touch, even in its most delicate form, can ignite neural responses far more intense than sight or sound ever could. The skin is the largest sensory organ you have. It holds thousands of receptors designed not just for protection or pressure, but for emotional connection. When someone enters your physical space, when they stand closer than most, brush past your arm, or sit just slightly too near, your brain notices, and it begins a quiet evaluation. Physical proximity activates the brain's emotional and attentional systems. The anterior cingulate cortex and the insula respond to shifts in closeness, processing not just the sensation, but the emotional context surrounding it. Is the nearness welcome or intrusive, familiar or foreign, inviting or overwhelming? Your body makes these distinctions before your thoughts do. This reaction isn't purely social, it's deeply biological. From infancy, your brain has associated touch with regulation, comfort, and bonding. Skin-to-skin contact releases oxytocin, lowers cortisol, and slows the heartbeat. That legacy remains into adulthood, where even a brief light touch can signal trust, intention, or desire. But not all touches are equal. A touch to the forearm might suggest curiosity or reassurance. A hand resting gently on your back may feel protective. Fingers brushing lightly across yours can send a quiet thrill through the nervous system. These gestures bypass logic. They speak directly to the limbic brain, stirring feelings that words can't always name. Your nervous system also reads intent. The speed, pressure, and duration of a touch all inform the brain's interpretation. A hesitant touch might evoke empathy or tenderness. A confident one might ignite a sense of security or anticipation. What matters most is not the gesture itself, but how it's received by your internal state. Closeness alone can influence emotional response. When someone stands within your intimate zone, closer than strangers or casual acquaintances typically stand, your autonomic system becomes alert, pupils dilate, breathing may shift. There's a subtle awareness of the other's presence, even when you're not looking directly at them. Proximity amplifies everything. The sound of breath, the warmth of skin, even the faint scent of another person, all become more noticeable, more emotionally charged. Your body leans forward, your focus narrows. Time may even feel slower or suspended. These are signs that your brain is preparing for deeper connection. There's a reason that first touches feel memorable. The moment a hand lingers or a shoulder brushes yours, a cascade of chemicals begins. Dopamine spikes in the reward system. Oxytocin begins to rise. If the context is right, if the emotional cues align, this moment can mark the beginning of emotional imprinting. Touch also carries memory. Your body remembers what it feels like to be touched with care, with longing, with playfulness. These stored sensations can influence how new experiences are felt. Sometimes a single touch reactivates past emotions, positive or painful, and your brain responds accordingly. But closeness isn't always about touching. Sometimes it's about the shared air between you, the way someone sits beside you in stillness, the subtle awareness that in this moment they've chosen to stay near. This too is a kind of intimacy, a silent agreement of attention. And when attraction is mutual, proximity becomes a dance. One person leans in, the other follows. The rhythm of breath synchronizes, a shoulder turns, and the other mirrors it. These physical harmonies don't require choreography. They emerge from the nervous systems communicating in ways that are older than speech. Eventually, your body begins to anticipate contact. The space between you holds tension, potential, warmth. And when that tension is resolved, when closeness becomes contact, it often feels like the confirmation of something already known, something your body had been waiting for. At this point, your brain is no longer just reacting, it's reinforcing. Every touch that feels safe and pleasurable strengthens the bond, creating a feedback loop of trust and desire. And within this loop, deeper emotional circuits come online. You begin to imagine the person not just as a presence, but as a possibility. But all of this, the visual pull, the scent, the sound, the warmth of nearness, eventually converges, and when they do, the brain's reward system steps in with full force. Because now what was once intrigue begins to feel like something more, wanting. When your senses align, when sight, scent, sound, and touch converge on one person, your brain recognizes the significance. Not logically, but chemically, it rewards your attention with a surge of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a central role in desire, motivation, and the anticipation of pleasure. Attraction isn't just about the present, it's about potential, and dopamine is the messenger of possibility. It fuels the sense that something exciting might happen, that the person in front of you might offer joy, intimacy, or connection. It whispers not of certainty, but of what could be. This is what makes attraction so compelling. Unlike oxytocin, which stabilizes and soothes, dopamine is dynamic. It propels you forward, sharpens your focus, and makes everything about the other person feel slightly heightened. Their voice seems richer, their expressions more vivid, their presence more magnetic. Your brain, now flooded with reward signals, begins to form a loop. The more you focus on them, the more rewarding it feels. The ventral tegmental area, or VTA, is one of the main sources of dopamine in the brain. When activated, it sends signals to the nucleus accumbens, a key player in the brain's reward circuitry, as well as the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in decision-making and social evaluation. Together, these areas assess not just physical appeal, but also compatibility, trustworthiness, and emotional warmth. Importantly, dopamine isn't just released in response to reward, it's released in anticipation of reward. This distinction is crucial. Your brain is motivated by the pursuit of connection, not just the moment of connection itself. This is why the early stages of attraction can feel so consuming. Your mind returns to the person again and again, replaying interactions, imagining possibilities, searching for meaning in their gestures or words. This loop is self-reinforcing. The more dopamine is released, the more the brain learns to associate that person with pleasure and emotional elevation. And as these associations grow, the bond deepens, not just emotionally, but neurochemically. Over time, even a glance, a text, or a memory of the person can trigger the same anticipatory reward signals. But dopamine doesn't act alone. Serotonin, another key neurotransmitter, tends to drop in the early stages of romantic attraction. This drop may account for the obsessive thoughts or tunnel vision that sometimes accompany new infatuation. Your brain becomes less interested in the outside world and more focused on the object of desire. It's a kind of neural spotlight, bright and narrow, illuminating one person while dimming everything else. This biochemical shift can make you feel more alive, more alert, more connected to the moment. But it also explains why attraction can be disorienting. It changes your priorities, reshapes your perceptions, and pulls your focus toward one possibility at the expense of others. And yet in this swirl of chemicals, something else is happening. Your brain is forming a pattern, a template. It's beginning to weave the image of the other person into your internal world. The hippocampus involved in memory consolidation helps store moments of connection. The prefrontal cortex evaluates those moments, asking if the emotional return justifies the growing investment. It's not always logical. Sometimes your brain rewards attention to someone who may not be right for you. The dopamine system doesn't measure compatibility. It measures potential reward. That's why someone can be deeply attracted to a person they know isn't good for them. The anticipation of reward, no matter how uncertain, can be intoxicating. This system also explains the emotional highs and lows of early attraction. A smile, a word, a brief exchange can lift you. A moment of silence or a perceived rejection can drop you. These fluctuations aren't just emotional, they're neurochemical. They follow the rhythm of rising and falling dopamine. And then there's novelty. The dopamine system thrives on it. Newness excites the brain, sharpens curiosity, and heightens arousal. This is why early stages of attraction often feel electric. Your brain hasn't yet mapped the other person, so every detail feels like discovery. The uncertainty, the not knowing, becomes part of the pleasure. But eventually, the flood settles. If the connection continues, other systems begin to take precedence, systems designed for bonding, safety, and emotional depth. Yet that initial burst of dopamine remains the spark. It's what draws you close, what fuels the pursuit, what marks the beginning of something meaningful. And all this energy, this anticipation, and emotional investment is filtered through one essential part of the brain, your emotional gatekeeper, the place where significance is determined and intensity is measured, the amygdala. Deep within your brain, the amygdala rests like a sentinel, small in size, immense in influence. When attraction stirs, this almond-shaped structure begins its quiet work, filtering emotion, assigning significance, and guiding your body's responses. It doesn't think in words or concepts, it feels, and it is one of the first parts of your brain to react when something or someone matters. The amygdala is part of the limbic system, the emotional core of your brain. It processes threats and rewards, signals urgency, and helps determine what deserves your attention. When you encounter someone who captures your interest, it's not just your eyes or ears responding, it's this deep emotional center weighing in. What makes the amygdala so important in attraction is its role in detecting salience. Salience means emotional weight, something that stands out, something potentially valuable or dangerous. The amygdala doesn't care whether the person is conventionally attractive or whether your logical mind approves. It reacts to intensity, to emotional resonance, to the sense that this interaction could shift your inner world. This is why, when you feel deeply drawn to someone, your body changes. The amygdala sends signals to other brain regions, activating your hypothalamus, increasing your heart rate, tightening your focus. Your pupils dilate. You become more alert. You lean in without meaning to. The world narrows around the person in front of you. Importantly, the amygdala doesn't work alone. It shares a powerful connection with the prefrontal cortex, where rational decision-making occurs. But in moments of strong emotional arousal, the amygdala can override the prefrontal cortex's caution. This is why people sometimes make impulsive decisions when deeply attracted. The emotional brain acts faster than the rational one can regulate. And yet, the amygdala is also involved in learning. It stores emotional experiences and helps guide future behavior based on past patterns. If someone reminds you of a former lover or even of a difficult past, the amygdala notes this, even if you're not consciously aware of it. It colors your emotional response, often shaping attraction before your mind catches up. This emotional filtering is highly personal. What one brain flags as emotionally significant, another might ignore. Your history, your attachments, your early relationships, all influence how your amygdala responds to different kinds of faces, voices, and gestures. This is why attraction feels so subjective, because it is. In romantic contexts, the amygdala also collaborates with areas like the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area, regions involved in reward and pleasure. When all these systems align, the emotional pull becomes unmistakable. The person feels not just interesting, but important, necessary, even. Your brain begins to frame them as a potential part of your inner world. Interestingly, studies suggest that the amygdala's response can differ by gender, especially when viewing emotionally charged or sexually suggestive images. Men may show heightened amygdala activation when viewing certain types of visual stimuli, particularly if these involve novelty or explicitness. Women, on the other hand, may show more nuanced patterns, depending on emotional context or perceived intimacy. These aren't rigid rules, but they reflect how varied the emotional brain can be in its interpretations. The amygdala is also sensitive to facial expressions. A fleeting smile, a subtle furrow in the brow, a look of warmth or curiosity. These cues are processed in milliseconds, and if they register as emotionally resonant, the amygdala lights up. It tells the rest of your brain, this matters, pay attention. This rapid processing can explain the sense of knowing someone feels right or wrong, even in the absence of detailed information. That intuition, that gut feeling, is often the amygdala speaking, delivering an emotional verdict long before the prefrontal cortex assembles the evidence. But the amygdala isn't always right. It can misinterpret signals, especially when past emotional experiences are involved. Sometimes it flags excitement as danger or confuses intensity with compatibility. Yet, even with its imperfections, it remains one of the most powerful guides in human connection. As attraction grows, the amygdala continues its work, modulating how you feel, whom you trust, and how strongly you respond. It's part of the reason you remember certain encounters so vividly. The emotional intensity it triggers sears those memories into your hippocampus, anchoring them for years. And as you learn more about the person through words, gestures, shared moments, the amygdala helps adjust your emotional map. It becomes more or less reactive, depending on whether the connection deepens or fades. But the amygdala is only the gatekeeper. Beyond its realm lies another structure, one even more ancient, more instinctual, a region that doesn't just feel emotion, but commands the drives behind it. That place is the hypothalamus. Beneath the surface of thought and emotion In the most primal depths of your brain lies the hypothalamus, a small but mighty structure that governs many of your most essential drives: hunger, thirst, sleep, and yes, sexual motivation. In the architecture of attraction, the hypothalamus operates as the hidden engine, silent, steady, and immensely powerful. When you feel desire, it's not just a sensation, it's a biological command. The hypothalamus orchestrates a symphony of hormonal signals that influence how your body responds to the presence of another. It sends instructions to the pituitary gland, which then affects the release of sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. These hormones don't simply drift through your body. They sharpen senses, heighten responsiveness, and tilt your attention toward intimacy. The hypothalamus is also deeply connected to the autonomic nervous system. It regulates heart rate, temperature, and arousal, all without conscious effort. This is why a single glance, a moment of closeness, or a whispered word can make your skin warm, your breath catch, or your heart quicken. These aren't random reactions. They are carefully calibrated responses managed by the hypothalamus. Importantly, this region doesn't make decisions. It responds. It interprets signals from your environment, visual, auditory, olfactory, and modulates your internal state accordingly. When those signals align into a pattern your brain associates with attraction, the hypothalamus engages. It primes your body for connection. Its role is especially clear during moments of sexual arousal. It activates the release of dopamine in key reward circuits and contributes to the generation of physical readiness. But more subtly, it also maintains internal balance. It monitors stress levels, adjusts hormonal output, and ensures that the body remains in a state conducive to intimacy, not just physically, but emotionally. One specific area within the hypothalamus, the medial preoptic area, has been identified as crucial in the regulation of sexual behavior. In studies involving brain imaging, this region often lights up when individuals view sexually salient stimuli. Though these findings are nuanced and subject to variation, they highlight just how embedded attraction is within your neurobiology. Interestingly, the hypothalamus is also involved in pair bonding. While it's often seen as a center of raw instinct, it doesn't act in isolation. It interacts with the limbic system, particularly the amygdala and hippocampus, helping link physical desire to emotional memory and emotional meaning. This is how physical attraction can become more than momentary. It becomes personal. And though much of the hypothalamus work is silent, you feel its influence everywhere. When you're near someone you desire, it modulates your energy. You may feel more awake, more present, more aware of your own body. This physiological alignment creates a readiness, not only to act, but to feel deeply. There's also the connection between the hypothalamus and circadian rhythms. Your patterns of rest and wakefulness influence your hormonal balance, which in turn affects desire and emotional receptivity. This is why time of day, mood, and physical well-being all play a role in how attraction is experienced. The hypothalamus ensures that all of these internal rhythms are harmonized. But like all systems in the brain, its influence is not isolated. The hypothalamus works in concert with the rest of your neural network. It sends signals outward, but it also responds to feedback from your experiences, your environment, and your emotional world. For example, if you feel emotionally safe, your hypothalamus may allow arousal and bonding hormones to flow more freely. But if past trauma or anxiety is present, it may inhibit these responses, causing physical or emotional shutdown. This is not weakness, it's your brain trying to protect you. So while desire may feel spontaneous, it is actually a delicate process, one that requires alignment between your environment, your emotions, and your biology. The hypothalamus ensures that your body is ready, but only when your nervous system agrees that it's safe to open. And as attraction continues to unfold, this readiness begins to take shape in different ways. You may notice growing attachment. You may feel drawn not just to the person's presence, but to their voice, their laugh, their way of being in the world. You begin to respond to their patterns, to their rhythms. But here's the quiet truth. Not all brains respond the same. Gender, experience, personality, all influence how attraction is processed at the neural level. And as the signals of desire continue to rise, the next layer of difference begins to reveal itself, because what happens in your brain may not mirror what happens in someone else's. As attraction deepens, subtle differences begin to emerge, not just between individuals, but between patterns often observed across gender. While every brain shares a similar architecture, the ways in which male and female brains respond to attraction can follow slightly distinct paths, especially in the intensity and timing of neural activation. When someone catches your attention, your emotional brain reacts, often through regions like the amygdala and the hypothalamus. These areas help register significance and initiate the cascade of emotional and physiological responses associated with desire. Yet studies suggest that men and women may show variations in how these areas are activated. In many cases, men's brains exhibit a stronger immediate response in these regions, particularly when exposed to visual or novel stimuli associated with sexual interest. This doesn't mean men experience deeper attraction, but that their neural systems may respond more rapidly to certain sensory cues. Women, by contrast, may engage additional areas associated with emotional context, memory, or social evaluation, suggesting a broader integration of sensory and emotional information before the same intensity arises. Their brains might process attraction through a more layered lens, combining visual input with internal states like safety, trust, or familiarity. Part of this divergence may stem from structural nuances. Certain subregions within the hypothalamus, for instance, are more prominent on average in male brains and may contribute to heightened reactivity. These differences are not deterministic. They simply offer one route, among many, that attraction can travel. Another layer of distinction lies in what some researchers have called erotic plasticity. This refers to the idea that women's patterns of attraction and arousal may be more influenced by social, emotional, or relational contexts, while men's patterns may show more consistency across situations. It's not a rule, but a tendency, a reflection of how life experience and neurobiology interact. Despite these tendencies, the essence of attraction remains deeply individual. Your brain interprets desire not as a fixed formula, but as a dynamic experience shaped by memory, personality, and cultural meaning. Whether your responses are fast and visceral or gradual and reflective, they are valid expressions of the emotional brain at work. What matters most is how these signals are received and reciprocated. When two people's patterns align, regardless of their pace or form, a resonance begins. And it's within that resonance that deeper connection is possible. As you've seen, the brain doesn't just respond to another person. It creates an entire internal narrative around them, shaped by chemistry, history, and emotion. And guiding much of that narrative, quietly and constantly, are the hormones that shape your inner world. Beneath every glance, every spark of interest, a quiet river of chemistry flows through you. Hormones, those unseen messengers, shape your emotions, color your perceptions, and influence how deeply you respond to another. In attraction, they do more than amplify desire. They orchestrate a complex interplay between body and mind, bonding and anticipation, curiosity and care. One of the most well-known hormones in this dance is oxytocin, often referred to as the bonding hormone. It is released during touch, intimacy, and moments of emotional closeness. But oxytocin doesn't just make you feel warm. It subtly shifts your attention. It increases trust, heightens empathy, and enhances the pleasure you feel from connection. In romantic attraction, its presence deepens the sense that the person before you is safe, familiar, even essential. Oxytocin works closely with dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with anticipation and reward. Together, they create a potent combination. Dopamine drives you toward someone, igniting interest and desire, while oxytocin helps you feel safe once you're near them. It's a beautiful balance, motivation paired with comfort, longing paired with presence. Another key player is testosterone. Present in all people, though typically at higher levels in men, this hormone influences sexual desire, assertiveness, and confidence. When testosterone levels rise in the context of attraction, people often feel bolder, more focused, more energized. It sharpens attention to cues like eye contact, body language, and subtle signs of reciprocation. In women, estrogen helps regulate emotional sensitivity and can heighten receptivity to social and sensory cues. Around times of higher estrogen levels, some women may experience increased openness, curiosity, or sensitivity to others' emotional states. These internal shifts, while subtle, can influence how attraction is perceived and pursued. Then there's adrenaline, the energizer. When you feel butterflies, when your heart races, when your palms sweat during a moment of closeness, adrenaline is often at play. It's part of your body's arousal system, triggered by excitement or uncertainty. In attraction, this physiological state amplifies emotion, creating the sensation that the moment is vivid, important, even unforgettable. But hormones do more than stir intensity. They also contribute to attachment. Over time, repeated moments of closeness, laughter, or vulnerability strengthen hormonal bonds. Your brain and body begin to associate the other person not just with desire, but with regulation and peace. This shift from excitement to emotional anchoring is the quiet architecture of connection. Importantly, these chemical reactions don't unfold the same way in every person. Genetics, life experience, and emotional history all influence how sensitive you are to certain hormonal shifts. Some people may feel flooded with emotion after a single touch. Others may take longer to register these internal signals. Neither response is more right or real. They are simply different manifestations of how your body communicates with your heart. This internal chemistry also explains why attraction can be so confusing. You may feel deeply drawn to someone even if your logical mind says otherwise, or you may feel indifferent despite someone's kindness or beauty. The hormonal pathways don't always align with expectation. They follow their own rhythm, responding to cues your conscious mind might not even notice. And over time, this chemistry evolves. In early attraction, dopamine and adrenaline may dominate, creating excitement and novelty. As the connection matures, oxytocin and vasopressin, another bonding hormone, begin to take precedence, reinforcing emotional stability and mutual care. The flame remains, but the fuel shifts. These transitions are not failures of passion. They are signs of deepening. Your brain moves from the thrill of pursuit to the depth of presence, from spark to glow, from chemistry to connection. But even as hormones sculpt your internal world, one powerful system continues to shape how you feel about another person, your mirror neurons. These silent imitators help you read emotion, feel resonance, and experience a kind of shared mind. They are the next layer in the unfolding story of why you feel drawn to someone, not just physically, but empathically. There is something extraordinary happening beneath the surface of your social experiences, something that allows you to feel what others feel, to sense their emotional states without words. These are your mirror neurons, specialized cells, that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. But their role goes far beyond simple mimicry. In the realm of attraction, they create emotional resonance. Imagine this. Someone smiles at you, genuinely. Your mirror neurons activate as if you are the one smiling, not just facially, but emotionally. You feel a trace of their happiness. This automatic neurological empathy is a cornerstone of connection. It's the reason why laughter spreads in a room, why sadness shared in silence can bring two people closer, and why attraction is often felt before it's understood. Mirror neurons reside primarily in regions of the brain associated with movement and emotion, areas like the inferior frontal gyrus and the insula. But they don't just simulate gestures, they simulate intention. When you observe someone glancing at you with curiosity, leaning in, or pausing before speaking, your mirror neurons work to understand not just the action, but the meaning behind it. This is why attraction isn't only about appearance or proximity. It's about feeling seen, understood, mirrored. When someone reflects your emotional state, even unconsciously, your brain perceives it as safety, as alignment, as intimacy. And this mirroring happens in subtle, continuous ways. You pick up on the cadence of their voice, the rhythm of their breathing, the way they gesture when they speak. Without realizing it, you begin to synchronize. This synchronization fosters a feeling of connection, not because you share identical thoughts, but because your bodies begin to move in similar time. This phenomenon is called interpersonal entrainment, and it's one of the quietest signs of emotional attunement. In the presence of someone you're drawn to, your heart rate may begin to mirror theirs. Your posture may echo their stance. Even the speed of your blinking or your pauses in speech can come into rhythm with theirs. These aren't conscious imitations, they're deep, physiological signs of resonance. This mirroring extends to emotion as well. When someone speaks vulnerably, your own emotions may surface. When they express joy, you may find yourself smiling before you know why. This is emotional contagion, a process heavily influenced by mirror neurons, in which emotions transfer through presence and expression alone. In attraction, these systems amplify each other. You don't just see beauty, you feel it reflected in how someone responds to you. You don't just hear a laugh, you feel the echo of it in your own chest. These feedback loops create emotional warmth and make every interaction feel charged with more meaning. But mirror neurons do more than connect. They help build rapport. When someone mirrors your tone, posture, or energy, you feel validated, understood. It's as if your internal state is being gently echoed back to you. This echo reinforces trust and can deepen emotional intimacy in remarkably short periods of time. It's worth noting that this process isn't always symmetrical. You may feel resonance while the other person doesn't, or vice versa. Mirroring is sensitive to internal states, to presence, to stress levels, and to emotional availability. But when it is mutual, it often feels effortless, as if something in your nervous systems has found common ground. And this mutual resonance often forms the basis of what we call chemistry. It's not a metaphor, it's a neurological reality. Two people attuned, mirroring, responding in real time, not just to words, but to tone, rhythm, breath, and presence. When this occurs, attraction becomes more than desire. It becomes a sense of emotional familiarity, even if the connection is brand new. This ability to feel others in such depth, to simulate their experience, is part of what makes humans uniquely social. It's also what makes attraction so nuanced, so personal, so powerful. Because when someone mirrors you, not perfectly but authentically, your brain doesn't just register their presence. It recognizes a potential bond. And once that bond begins to form, another layer comes online. Your brain doesn't only mirror, it begins to project. You start imagining what could be. You begin to anticipate a future, however faint or abstract, with this person in it. And it's this transition from present resonance to future vision that we explore next. Attraction begins in the moment, but it rarely stays there. As mirror neurons build resonance and hormones deepen emotional tone, your brain begins to do something uniquely human. It starts to project. It begins to imagine. The person in front of you is no longer just who they are in the now. They become a doorway to what might be. This is where the default mode network, a network of brain regions involved in self-reflection and mental simulation, becomes active. It's the part of your mind that weaves story, that connects today with tomorrow, that asks what if. When you're attracted to someone, the default mode network begins to craft potential futures. You envision conversations not yet had, moments not yet lived, memories not yet formed. You imagine what they're like in different seasons of life. You picture them laughing with your friends, standing beside you in quiet mornings, or reaching for your hand in uncertainty. These aren't idle fantasies. They are part of how your brain evaluates connection. It's an emotional forecast, trying to assess whether the bond that feels good now will continue to feel meaningful over time. This imagined future shapes present emotion. If what you picture feels warm, stable, and joyful, your body reinforces the attraction. The image becomes a source of comfort, even if it's still unspoken. But if the imagined future feels uncertain or heavy, your system may pull back, even if everything on the surface seems right. Projection doesn't rely on facts. It leans on intuition, past experiences, and unspoken desires. Your brain gathers fragments, gestures, expressions, stories, and builds something larger than the moment. This process isn't always conscious. Often it's in the background, quietly shaping how safe, excited, or vulnerable you feel. In romantic attraction, this ability to imagine together can become a shared experience. Two people begin to create a common emotional landscape. They talk about dreams, or laugh about someday. These aren't just words, they're markers of emotional investment. When you feel comfortable envisioning a future with someone, even lightly, it signals that your nervous system perceives possibility and openness. But projection has its shadows. Sometimes we imagine not the person in front of us, but the person we hope they are. We project ideals, stories, or unmet needs onto someone, mistaking potential for reality. When this happens, attraction can feel intense but unstable because it's built on what could be, not what is. Your brain does this not out of deception, but out of hope. Hope for closeness, for continuity, for the kind of understanding that feels rare. And while this imaginative capacity is one of your greatest strengths, it's also one of your greatest vulnerabilities, because to project is to risk being wrong. Still, this capacity is essential to bonding. Without it, connection would remain shallow. It's this leap of imagination, this gentle leaning forward into shared possibility that allows two people to grow something together. You begin to adapt to one another. You start anticipating needs, syncing routines, softening in the presence of the other. This shift from momentary attraction to envisioned continuity is the turning point. It's when desire begins to seek depth, when your nervous system no longer only craves excitement, but also yearns for reliability, for repetition, for the kind of presence that can be trusted. And as this vision of future intimacy solidifies, another transformation begins. Your body, once driven by the thrill of novelty, starts to crave familiarity. Safety becomes its own kind of magnetism. And within that safety, a new emotion begins to rise, not as intense as lust, not as sudden as desire, but more enduring attachment. Attachment is quieter than desire, but deeper. Where attraction sparks with energy and curiosity, attachment settles like a warm weight in the chest, a calm assurance that this person, this presence, matters beyond the moment. It is the emotional thread that turns encounters into connections, and connections into relationships that endure. At its core, attachment is a neurobiological system designed to keep you close to those who bring comfort, safety, and emotional nourishment. It is not the surge of dopamine that drives the chase, but the steady release of oxytocin and vasopressin that helps anchor you in shared time and space. This system has deep roots. From the first days of life, your brain is wired to seek closeness. Infants bond with caregivers through touch, gaze, and voice, cues that signal safety and love. These early experiences shape how your attachment system develops, influencing how you relate to others as an adult. Whether you lean into closeness with ease or with caution, your nervous system remembers. When you are attracted to someone, and that attraction is met with warmth, consistency, and emotional reciprocity, your brain begins to build trust. Over time, your body responds not just to physical proximity, but to emotional availability. A message is sent from your limbic system to the rest of your being. This person is safe, and in safety, love begins to take root. Vasopressin plays a central role in this stage. While oxytocin supports bonding and emotional openness, vasopressin contributes to a sense of loyalty, protection, and preference for a specific partner. In many animal species, these chemicals create pair bonds that last through seasons and years. In humans, they shape the desire to remain close, to care for, and to build a life together. Attachment doesn't arrive in a single moment. It unfolds gradually through repeated experiences of attunement, repair, and presence. It grows when someone listens, when you speak without judgment, when they reach out, not only when you shine, but when you struggle. Each small act of emotional reliability strengthens the signal in your brain that says, "Stay close." Yet attachment is not without its challenges. Your early attachment patterns, formed long before you had words, can influence how you navigate intimacy. Some may fear closeness, pulling away when things feel too vulnerable. Others may cling tightly, fearing loss even in the midst of love. These patterns are not flaws, they are adaptations. Your brain learned how to survive emotionally, and it continues to protect you in ways that sometimes no longer serve. But attachment can change. The brain remains plastic throughout life, capable of forming new associations, new reflexes of trust. With enough repetition of safe, emotionally nourishing connection, old patterns can soften, new ones can form. The nervous system, once guarded or overactivated, can begin to rest. And this resting, this exhale into closeness, is one of the clearest signs that attraction has become something deeper. You no longer seek the person to satisfy a craving, to prove something, or to chase a fleeting feeling. You seek them because being with them feels like home. Still, attachment is not the end point. It is a new foundation. From here, your brain and heart begin to negotiate something even more complex. How to maintain desire in the presence of safety, how to keep mystery alive within familiarity, how to grow together without losing the spark that drew you in. This is the dance between novelty and security, between the need to explore and the need to return. And it is within this dance that long-term attraction either fades or flourishes. The key lies not in chasing what once was, but in continuing to discover who you are together. Because attachment, when nurtured, becomes more than emotional habit. It becomes a mutual ground from which curiosity, desire, and joy can rise again and again. And it is within this space that the next chapter of attraction begins, not with urgency, but with a quiet willingness to stay, to see, to know. As attachment weaves its steady thread through your connection, your history begins to whisper beneath every glance, touch, and word. These are the echoes of past relationships, the imprint of love and loss, trust and betrayal, joy and pain. They form what psychologists call your attachment style, a subtle yet powerful lens through which your brain filters new connections. Your early experiences with caregivers form the foundation of this style. If your earliest bonds were safe and responsive, your nervous system learned that closeness is a source of comfort. You developed what is often called a secure attachment, marked by openness to intimacy and resilience in the face of conflict. But not everyone carries this sense of secure safety. Some grew up with inconsistent or unavailable caregivers, leading to anxious or avoidant attachment patterns. An anxious attachment might make you crave closeness, but fear abandonment, creating a push-pull dynamic. An avoidant attachment might lead you to protect yourself by maintaining distance, even when you long to connect. These patterns are not conscious choices, but deeply embedded neural pathways. When you encounter a new potential partner, your brain automatically activates these styles, coloring how you perceive their actions, interpret their intentions, and regulate your own emotions. For example, a person with anxious attachment may interpret a delayed text as rejection, triggering a flood of stress hormones. Their amygdala and hypothalamus activate rapidly, flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. This biological cascade can lead to behaviors aimed at reassurance, checking phones, seeking proximity, or expressing worry. In contrast, someone with avoidant attachment might experience closeness as threatening to their autonomy. Their nervous system may respond with a stress reaction that urges withdrawal. They may appear emotionally distant, but beneath the surface, this is a protective mechanism, a way to maintain equilibrium. The good news is that these attachment styles are not fixed. Your brain remains adaptable, especially in relationships where emotional safety is consistently demonstrated. Repeated experiences of care and responsiveness can gradually reshape neural circuits, fostering new patterns of trust and regulation. Understanding your own attachment style and that of your partner can illuminate the invisible dance of attraction and intimacy. It helps explain why certain behaviors trigger intense reactions, why some conflicts seem repetitive, and how healing can begin. Moreover, this awareness invites compassion toward yourself and others. It reminds you that beneath behaviors often lie unmet needs and survival strategies crafted in earlier chapters of life. Attraction is not just about who is in front of you, but about the intricate dialogue between your past and present selves. As you move forward in connection, your brain continually balances these echoes with new experiences. Moments of attunement, empathy, and repair can soothe the nervous system, allowing deeper emotional availability. This dynamic process makes each relationship a unique landscape, shaped by history, but not defined by it. And as attachment styles gently influence your journey, another fascinating force emerges, one that keeps desire fresh, even in the presence of closeness. It's the allure of novelty, the brain's hunger for newness. Known in science as the Coolidge effect, it is the biological rhythm that makes fresh experiences exciting, even within familiar bonds. Within the complex dance of attraction and attachment, your brain harbors a subtle craving for novelty. This hunger, scientifically known as the Coolidge effect, ensures that even when familiarity and safety are present, the spark of excitement can flare anew. It is a mechanism that has evolved to balance the need for connection with the drive to explore. The story behind the Coolidge effect is almost folkloric. A famous anecdote recounts President Calvin Coolidge and his wife visiting a farm where a rooster mated repeatedly with different hens. Mrs. Coolidge supposedly noted the frequency, and the president remarked that the rooster's vigor was renewed by the novelty of each new partner. While charming, this tale captures a profound biological truth. Neurologically, the Coolidge effect involves the dopamine system. Dopamine responds not only to reward but to change and surprise. When the brain encounters something new, a new face, a different scent, a fresh touch, it releases dopamine, reigniting curiosity and desire. This mechanism encourages exploration and genetic diversity in the natural world. In human relationships, this translates to a desire for fresh experiences, even within long-term bonds. Novelty might come in the form of shared adventures, new conversations, or even subtle shifts in behavior. These fresh moments keep the brain engaged, preventing stagnation and fostering continued attraction. Yet, novelty is a delicate balance. Too much unpredictability can trigger stress responses, activating the amygdala and flooding the body with cortisol. Too little, and the brain's reward system dulls, leading to boredom or disconnection. Your nervous system continually negotiates this tension, seeking enough surprise to excite, but enough stability to feel safe. This dynamic explains why long-term relationships often benefit from intentional novelty, new activities, changing routines, or rediscovering each other through different lenses. It's not about constant change, but about gentle variations that rekindle dopamine's spark without overwhelming emotional safety. Interestingly, the Coolidge effect also ties into sexual motivation. Research suggests that males of many species exhibit renewed sexual interest when introduced to new partners, a trait linked to evolutionary pressures to maximize reproductive success. However, humans have evolved complex social bonds, and the expression of this effect is moderated by cultural norms, emotional bonds, and individual differences. For some, the Coolidge effect manifests subtly, fueling ongoing curiosity and playful attraction. For others, it can challenge commitment, tempting distraction, or restlessness. Understanding this natural drive can help individuals and couples navigate desire with compassion and creativity. It also sheds light on the importance of both novelty and familiarity. Attraction is not a simple flame, but a living fire, fed by both the comfort of the known and the thrill of the new. As this balance unfolds, your brain begins to weave attraction beyond sexuality alone. You start to recognize other kinds of magnetism, those rooted in friendship, admiration, and deep human connection. Because not all attraction is about passion, some of it is about belonging. Attraction often calls to mind images of passion and desire, but it stretches far beyond the realm of sexuality. There is a quieter, yet equally powerful form of attraction, one rooted in friendship, admiration, and deep emotional resonance. This is the attraction of belonging. Your brain craves connection, not only in moments of romantic desire, but as a fundamental need for safety and identity. The same neural pathways that ignite romantic attraction also support social bonding and friendship. This overlap reveals that the drive to connect is complex and multifaceted. Platonic attraction emerges from shared values, mutual respect, and emotional availability. It's nurtured in moments of laughter, vulnerability, and trust. When you feel truly seen and accepted by someone without expectation or pressure, your brain rewards that connection similarly to romantic attraction through oxytocin release and activation of reward circuits. This form of attraction fosters a deep sense of safety and belonging. It satisfies the human need to be part of a community, to be valued not just for what you offer, but for who you are. Friendships often become the bedrock of emotional health, providing support through life's challenges and joys. In neuroscience, the social brain hypothesis suggests that human intelligence evolved primarily to manage complex social relationships. Your brain dedicates significant resources to interpreting social cues, understanding others' perspectives, and maintaining bonds. This is why social connection feels so rewarding, and why the loss of friendship can be deeply painful. Platonic attraction also plays a crucial role in romantic relationships. Partners who are friends often report higher satisfaction, greater trust, and more resilience in the face of stress. This foundation of friendship adds layers of meaning and depth to the connection. Moreover, attraction that transcends sexuality invites curiosity about others' inner worlds. It opens space for empathy, shared meaning, and the joy of discovery beyond physical appearance. Your brain delights in these exchanges, reinforcing connection through emotional intimacy. Recognizing the spectrum of attraction can deepen your understanding of relationships. Not every meaningful bond is romantic, yet every bond holds the potential for profound growth and joy. As you honor the variety of connections that enrich your life, you also begin to appreciate the complex dance between initial sparks and lasting bonds. Because attraction is not static, it evolves, shaped by chemistry, choice, and shared experience. From this evolving landscape, two paths often emerge: the fireworks of early passion and the enduring warmth of long-term connection. Understanding what sustains interest beyond the initial spark is the next step in this exploration. The initial spark of attraction, the flutter of excitement, the rush of dopamine, feels vivid and immediate, but over time it evolves, softening into something more complex, the chemistry that sustains long-term interest. This transformation is subtle yet profound. While early attraction thrives on novelty, unpredictability, and intense reward signaling. Sustaining interest requires additional layers of connection. Your brain begins to balance the thrill of desire with the need for emotional security, shared values, and mutual support. In neuroscience, this shift is marked by changes in brain activity. Regions involved in reward and motivation remain engaged, but other areas associated with empathy, social cognition, and attachment become more prominent. This allows you not only to seek pleasure, but to understand, predict, and support another person's inner world. Oxytocin and vasopressin, the hormones linked to bonding, help reinforce this enduring connection. They promote feelings of trust, safety, and comfort, qualities essential for long-term partnership. Their presence helps counterbalance dopamine's chase, creating a neurochemical environment conducive to stability. Importantly, maintaining chemistry over time also depends on novelty, though in different forms. New shared experiences, continued personal growth, and open communication fuel ongoing interest. It's not about the constant intensity of the first encounter, but about rekindling curiosity and appreciation within familiarity. Your brain's plasticity supports this. Neural circuits involved in reward and attachment can adapt, strengthening bonds or, if neglected, allowing interest to wane. The quality of shared time, emotional responsiveness, and mutual respect all contribute to this neural shaping. Yet sustaining chemistry requires effort beyond biology. It calls for vulnerability, honesty, and the willingness to navigate challenges together. It's a dance of giving and receiving, listening and expressing, closeness and individuality. This balance between spark and steadiness is delicate. Too much routine may dull attraction. Too much volatility can destabilize it. Finding harmony becomes a shared journey, a continuous discovery of each other's evolving inner landscapes. Understanding these neural and emotional dynamics can help you cultivate relationships that are both passionate and enduring. It invites patience with the ebb and flow of connection and gratitude for the layers of intimacy that deepen with time. As attraction grows beyond initial fireworks into sustained chemistry, it opens the door to a deeper human need, the longing to belong, to be understood, and to be accepted. This need shapes not only romantic bonds, but all meaningful social connections. And as you explore this social brain and its design for belonging, you begin to see attraction not as a fleeting feeling, but as part of a broader, intricate web of human connection. Human beings are inherently social creatures. Beyond individual attraction, your brain is wired to seek belonging, acceptance, and connection within groups. This social brain, a network of regions dedicated to understanding, predicting, and interacting with others, plays a profound role in shaping how you experience attraction. Areas like the medial prefrontal cortex, temporoparietal junction, and the posterior cingulate cortex engage when you think about others' thoughts, feelings, and intentions. This ability, known as theory of mind, allows you to empathize and anticipate social behavior, deepening connection, and fostering trust. Attraction isn't isolated. It unfolds within the social contexts you inhabit. The way friends, family, and community respond to your relationships can either reinforce or challenge your emotional experience. Positive social feedback often strengthens bonds, while social conflict can create tension. Your brain also tracks social status, fairness, and reciprocity within groups. These factors influence how safe and valued you feel, shaping openness to attraction. Feeling socially supported can amplify desire and attachment, while social exclusion or judgment may dampen it. The social brain encourages shared rituals, laughter, touch, eye contact that synchronize neural and emotional states. These shared moments create a sense of belonging, weaving individual connections into a collective fabric. This communal aspect of attraction underscores that love and connection are not just private experiences, but deeply embedded in the networks of human relationships. The desire to belong and be understood within a group enriches and complicates how attraction manifests. Understanding this social dimension invites a broader view of attraction as part of your journey toward community, identity, and shared meaning. It reminds you that connections flourish not only between two people, but within the broader web of human experience. As attraction deepens within this social landscape, it can sometimes tip into imbalance, where feelings become overwhelming or intrusive. This brings us to a delicate subject. When attraction becomes obsession, sometimes attraction flows effortlessly, harmonizing body and mind in a dance of mutual presence. But occasionally this natural rhythm falters, and attraction spirals into obsession, a state where neural circuits, once balanced, become overwhelmed and unregulated. Obsession arises when the brain's reward and emotional systems become locked into repetitive loops. Dopamine continues to flood pathways associated with desire, but without the usual checks and balances from the prefrontal cortex, which governs impulse control and rational thought. This can lead to persistent, intrusive thoughts about the object of attraction, often accompanied by anxiety and distress. The amygdala, responsible for processing emotional salience, becomes hyperactive, intensifying feelings of longing or fear of loss. Simultaneously, reduced serotonin levels may exacerbate compulsive thinking and mood instability. Together, these neurochemical shifts can create a feedback loop that feels inescapable. This state is more than mere infatuation. It's a neural pattern that can interfere with daily functioning, decision-making, and emotional well-being. It often emerges from underlying vulnerabilities, such as attachment insecurities, low self-esteem, or past traumas, which sensitize the brain's emotional circuits. Understanding obsession through neuroscience helps demystify its intensity and offers pathways for healing. Techniques that strengthen prefrontal control, like mindfulness, cognitive behavioral strategies, and emotional regulation, can help rebalance neural activity, allowing desire to return to a healthier, more integrated state. It's important to recognize that attraction's power lies in its ability to engage deeply with our emotional core. But like any powerful force, it must be navigated with awareness and care. When balanced, attraction fosters connection, growth, and joy. When unbalanced, it can lead to pain and confusion. As you reflect on these dynamics, it becomes clear that attraction, with all its complexity, remains one of the most profound mysteries of human experience. Despite centuries of study, its depths continue to surprise and inspire. And so we arrive at the final truth. Even with all the science, all the neuroscience, attraction still holds a mystery, one that transcends explanation and invites continual exploration. Even after exploring the intricate dance of neurons, hormones, and social cues that shape attraction, there remains a profound mystery at its core, an essence that eludes complete understanding. Attraction is not simply a sum of brain regions or chemical reactions. It is a living, breathing experience unique to each individual. Your brain weaves together countless threads, sensory inputs, emotional memories, cultural meanings, personal histories, and biological drives. These elements interact in dynamic, unpredictable ways, crafting a narrative that is both deeply personal and universally human. This mystery is part of attraction's power. It invites wonder, curiosity, and reflection. It reminds you that connection is not just a neurological event, but a sacred space where two minds and hearts meet, sometimes unexpectedly, often inexplicably. In this space, science and poetry intertwine. The precise firing of neurons dances alongside the ineffable spark of human spirit. Your experience of attraction transcends what can be measured or explained, opening a window to the profound complexity of being alive and connected. As you rest with this thought, let yourself embrace both knowledge and mystery. Allow the calm certainty of understanding to coexist with the gentle wonder of the unknown. In doing so, you honor the full spectrum of attraction, from the first flicker of desire to the quiet depth of lasting connection. This balance between science and soul is what makes attraction endlessly fascinating and deeply human. It is a journey without end, inviting you to explore not only others, but yourself, your needs, your hopes, your capacity to love and be loved. So as you close your eyes and breathe softly, know that within you resides the remarkable ability to feel, to connect, and to be drawn toward others in ways that are as complex as they are beautiful. And with this, your exploration of the neuroscience behind attraction comes to a gentle close, leaving space for rest, reflection, and the quiet unfolding of connection in your own life.